Hi, my name is Dennis Aguma. You are listening to or watching Creative Restruction, which is a COVID-19 series that I've been running. This is the sixth week, hence the sixth episode, since we've been into quarantine, and it covers a number of things from a variety of topics. And today's guests are Norman Mukasa, Kassaga Arinaitwe, and I'm your host, Dennis Aguma. I do apologize. The reason there's a voiceover at the beginning is because we had internet disruptions
Back in two districts
and
now
we
in
weren't even
Uge,
able to
Eastern
stream live.
Uganda, and
So, for those who
we are
normally
also in
watch live,
Uganda.
I do
And basically,
apologize.
what we do,
But
we
this is a
take our
recording
graduates who
from
are
Zoom and captures the
leaders in
essence
their
of what
own way
happened
and
at
place
today's
them in
call. I
schools,
hope you enjoy
UPE
it.
schools, Universal Primary Education schools, who have a big gap of great teachers in mathematics and English to improve the learning outcomes of our children, but also they work with communities to ensure that children not only come to school, but they also they are learning. We do other many other things, but that's me. I am right now in Kampala, and I'm in my home in Mukasa.
Fantastic. That's
I hope you are able to hear me.
yes, I was able to hear you loud and clear. On the other line is Caroline. Hi, Carol.
Hi, everyone.
If you could just say hi
Carol.
to everybody, say who you are.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. I'm Agaba Carol. It's buffering. Sorry.
Yeah, we can hear
Agaba
you.
Carol. Yeah, Agaba Carol, student of Human Nutrition at Kyambogo University. And I'm in Nalia. Yeah.
And we also have Norman on the line. Norman, hi. Norman is muted. Let me unmute him, I think. Norman, can you hear us?
Dennis, I think we mute the videos now because I can feel like your network is also.
Yeah, that's very true. I'm going to mute all the videos. But Norman, can you hear us? Okay, Norman will join us later. Let's start with the live show. So basically, my name is Dennis Aguma, and I'll be. This is my sixth in a series of what I call creative restructuring. So basically, what happened is at the beginning of the lockdown, I decided that I was going to use this time productively to try and have discussions with a number of people in the spaces that I'm involved in, which is around enterprise, entrepreneurship, higher education institutions, academia, research. And this is the sixth week I'm doing this. I noticed lots of people have been doing Facebook Live lately and Zoom and all. Uh, but we've been doing it for 6 weeks now, so, which I think was actually brilliant. And just a brief update about us. I say us, but I work with a number of colleagues through SSCG Consulting, which is a consulting firm based here in Birmingham. We do a lot of advisory, consulting, operations, and a number of things. And I'm a partner there. But we also run the One Africa Network, which is based in Birmingham. It's a network for the African diaspora, entrepreneurs, investors, business leaders, professionals, all committed to advancing innovation, business inclusiveness, growth, and championing really entrepreneurship and growth for our African diaspora. So to set the context for today's discussion, I was doing some reading actually, and I thought that this was very interesting. It was World Bank Education COVID monitoring report, which was I think around the 18th of March, and it's very interesting what they had to say. This I just literally copied this verbatim. Maybe I just read this one out loud so that our viewers and listeners can get an idea of what I'm talking about. It says, as we have seen from previous health emergencies, most recently Ebola, the impact on education is likely to be most devastating in countries with already low learning outcomes, high dropout rates, and low resilience shock. While school closures seem to present a logical solution to enforcing social distancing within communities, prolonged closures tend to have a disproportionately negative impact on the most vulnerable students. They have fewer opportunities for learning at home, and their time out of school may present economic burdens for parents who may face challenges, find prolonged childcare, or even adequate food in the absence of school meals. Hard-won gains in expanded access and education could stagnate or reverse as school closures are extended and accessibility to alternative options like distance learning remain out of reach for those without the means to connect. This may cause further loss in human capital and diminished economic opportunities. I thought that was quite poignant. So to help me unpick this discussion, I have three guests, although my third guest hadn't provided me with her profile picture at the time of publishing this flyer. But first is Dr. Mukasa. Dr. Norman is the Director of Research and Postgraduate Center at Muteesa One Royal University, Kampala, Uganda. Thanks for joining us. And the other one is my good old friend, Kassaga Arinaitwe James, the social entrepreneur and CEO of Teach for Uganda. But just to summarize, both guests' profiles are really huge, but it might be worth going through them because it gives you an idea of the experience that they have and the way their experiences likely to enrich this discussion. So Dr. Norman holds a PhD in international intercultural studies. He has a European master's degree in sustainable development, focusing mainly on regional health systems, which is quite poignant, especially given what's happening with COVID. And obviously, he's also a graduate from Makerere University. He has a lot of experience in terms of building research networks and capacity. I know that we have worked together on a number of things. He's a member of various academic networks, but the one I'm most familiar with is the Network for Education and Multidisciplinary Research Africa, NEMRA. This one is mainly based in Uganda, and it's a network of research and students doing a lot of research in Uganda from a number of Ugandan universities, and I'm a member of that. So, Dr. Norman, thank you very much for joining us. The other one is Kassaga Arinaitwe James. As I said earlier, he's the co-founder of Teach for Uganda, and he has a lot of work experience working with, I could go on actually, but mainly with the Carter Center in the United States. This is by the President Jimmy Carter. 2013 Global Health Ops Fellow in New York. He was selected as an Acumen Global Fellow, spent a year in India working with lots of social entrepreneurs, particularly young people around skills. He's an Aspen Institute Fellow. He's written quite a lot on a number of things, and he's very vocal and very passionate around education, particularly for young people, and he's been featured on Al Jazeera, The Guardian, New York Times. I could go on and on and on. So, thank you very much for joining us. And of course, the third guest is Carol Agaba, who is a student in Uganda, and I'll bring her on board at some point. So let me start. I know that, James, you said that you were going to leave early and you had a previous appointment. So I don't want to hold you for too long. Let me start with yourself. I know you briefly introduced yourself. What is Teach for Uganda? What do you do for those who who are not aware at the beginning when you were explaining to us under the guest? What is Teach for Uganda? What do you guys do? What's happening with the ground?
Thank you, Dennis, and for that really quick roundup. I hope everybody can hear me. Dennis, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. Because the internet in our context goes in and out, and this is how we do our Zoom calls anyway. Thank you for sharing. I will not repeat the bio because at least you've shared it, but basically I will focus on what Teach for Uganda does. I would be remiss if I wouldn't say that actually the focus for our work is what you talked about with the World Bank. In fact, this morning with the World Bank message that you shared, this morning the first call I had was with about our multilaterals organizations, talking about World Bank, USAID, DFID, the the development aid for the UK, and the involvement and their support of education system, and then the global partnerships for education. And basically, Teach for Uganda belongs not just to itself. We have what we call a locally rooted but globally informed model of training leaders and also teaching and learning. And that is, we partner with Teach for All, a global organization of 56 organizations across the globe. They include Teach for America, Teach for India, Japan, China, Latin American countries like Chile and Argentina, Mexico. And in Africa, we started with Ghana, Nigeria, Uganda, and now we have inspired Liberia, Sierra Leone, Tanzania, and Kenya is also coming on board. So the work that we do basically focuses on what I will share with you, if you allow me. I was going through a document here that I could share with you.
Yes.
Here, let me see if it's to share.
Yes.
And I was actually yes. So basically, we look at this. This is actually what I'm talking about with our. Are you able to see, Dennis?
Yes, I can see, and the viewers can see it.
If I can expand it so that they can see it. So basically, we focus on universal primary education, and that's what we do, so that every child in Uganda that you talked about is able to get an excellent education that allows them opportunities to thrive in the fast changing world, which is where we are with COVID challenges and others. Now, let me give you a quick context. Teach for Uganda, we were in 2 districts before COVID-19 hit, 2 districts in 16 schools, impacting close to 20,000 children, meaning that we teach classes from primary 4, 5, 6, and 7 in those 16 schools, 10 in Mayuge and 6 in Luwero. And this year we were hiring 50 more fellows. These are graduates from our universities, from Makerere to Mbarara University, Gulu University, Busitema, and name them, and who are aligned with our mission and vision and care about, passionate about serving the country, especially by teaching their brothers and sisters in rural communities, and be able to bring them to speed, compete with their counterparts. So I'm sharing this slide with you, Dennis, so that you can have an idea where we are. 100 million, as you see on your right, projected to hit 100 million people, Uganda by 2050. Today we are 40 million and 16 years of age to be the median age for Uganda, which means as we speak today, there are 11 million children enrolled in primary school alone. And the projected numbers are that the teacher-to-student ratio is about 40 to actually 1 teacher. However, that is the average that is brought in by World Economic Forum, World Bank, UNESCO, and others. Where we work in our communities, where I have been myself, in Luwero, rural Luwero, in Mayuge, the teacher-to-student ratio is 100 plus to 1 teacher. 100 students, 1 teacher. In Mayuge, in one of the schools, I can name them, Isenda Primary School, we have at least 1 class, P3 class, where we have 300 students per 1 teacher. And so that tells you the challenge of even just trying to teach those rural children. 1 teacher cannot make a difference in terms of teaching 300 kids. The statistics are very staggering. And then when we look at the root causes that we feel like there's leadership that is missing at the core of our education system, meaning leadership that has leaders who understand the contextual challenges, not just from the national level, but from the ground up. And then also that the current education system is not preparing our children to be what you are talking about, entrepreneurs and problem solvers. And then the other overarching issue is that when you look at countries across Africa, the amount of resources that is invested in education is way less in Uganda compared to our counterparts, whether in Kenya, Nigeria, Ghana, and others who we should be going. And that, of course, will end up exacerbate the inequality and inequity on what our rural children will get. And of course, going forward, we know very well that education has far-reaching consequences that you've been talking about on economic development. We see that when our children have at least less education, we fail to develop. That's one. 13 to 35% potential GDP per capita is lost, right? Then we are in the days of COVID, Dennis, as you all can tell, the implication on the health and human development are even more staggering, right? It shows that actually we are by twice if our adults are not able to graduate primary education. And as we speak right now, which children are learning? It's those children who are mostly in high-end communities in Kampala, Wakiso, and other towns. But when you look to villages like where we are in rural Bujiri, in Bududa, in Mayuge, and all those communities, the children are really scrambling to find these materials. And just a caveat, the president last night as he was speaking, there was a lady who called in all the way from the mountains of Bududa and is spoken in Lugisu, you know, trying to say that, look, if for us, you are saying that our children should learn on radio and internet and TV, but there's nothing like that over here. Even we don't have radios, how will our children learn? And so those are the kinds of children that we focus on. And then the last one here is that for us who care about the future of democracy in our countries and how to ensure that we actually have a developing democracy, a growing democracy, we care that we have to educate our children. Otherwise, if our children do not get primary education, then our democracies will suffer. And at the end of the day, conflict will affect us all. And so that's our mission and vision. We think about that. So that's what we focus on. I'll not get on other things that we do. I'll just stop there and then focus on the current situation, how we are dealing with the current situation, and then I'll quickly end so that I can give others a chance. So today we are focusing on one, how do we ensure that our rural children are learning even amidst this challenge? So what we first did was we waited for government, of course, which really hit us hard. And then we saw that the government was taking a while to actually help deliver the resources to our children. So then what we did, we were able to have some fellows who stayed on the ground in Mayuge and others in Luero. And I'll share with you some videos. I don't know whether you've received our newsletter, Dennis.
Yes, I always do, by the way. Thank you.
Yes, awesome. These fellows have been, we call them fellows because it's a 2-year fellowship. And once they graduate, they go into alumni and there's more development after that to be leaders and entrepreneurs. But to focus on what we are doing now, these fellows have been riding their bicycles because the bicycle is what is allowed now in Uganda, not private vehicles and others, except if you're part of the response team. And they ride their bicycles, they drop off homework to the children in their homes, and then they pick up homework. Some schools where the children are able to walk to the school one by one, they walk to the school, they pick up the homework, and then they return it for assessment and all that. Luckily, as we speak, we are delivering readers. These are English readers for our children who can't really get on TV or even radio. As well. And these readers, we've partnered with Njuba Spelling Bee. Some of you may know the Spelling Bee guys. You've seen them on at Serena in national media. So the Njuba Spelling Bee people, we have partnered with them, and we are delivering at least 2,000 books, just readers for English. And then on top of that, we shall also deliver about 1,000 to parents that include stories on how to protect yourself, how to sanitize, how to wash, how to make sure that there's hygiene in the home. And then on other hand, we are also delivering workbooks in mathematics. Basically, these are learning workbooks, both where you have self-learning and self-assessment. And in that regard, also, we are partnering with World Vision to help us deliver those materials in places where our young people may not reach with a bike. World Vision luckily is being allowed to be, because they have VHTs, village health teams, so is being allowed to do that. And so we are partnering with them to be able to ensure that those materials are delivered to our children and they can continue learning. We are also going, because we partner with government both at the local level and the national level. I spoke to the minister myself on last week, and the state minister for education, Honorable Seninde, recommended that we speak to the commissioner of basic education, and then the commissioner directed us to the RDC as well as to the district education officers. And now we are working on that level, and I have learned that they are now using counselors and local council people to deliver those materials. So we are working on that level as well to ensure that those materials, especially the printed out ones from the government, reach our children. And so I'll stop there for now and let others take over or get some questions.
Wow. That was a very good run-up in terms of what you guys are actually doing. Perhaps one of my apologies is that somehow, I think you mentioned earlier, the internet connection is absolutely terrible. And I suspect it's actually on my side because we've lost our Facebook link. So I've had to reshare the Facebook link. So apologies for anyone that's just joining us on Facebook Live, because the previous link was somehow got cut off. But that's very good, James, what you guys are doing. One of the things that has been branded about, especially with COVID-19 and the effects this has had on almost every industry actually, is the fact that people are being very creative and innovative and that they're using technology. And I think you did highlight some of the challenges when you're dealing with rural children, where technology, in terms of the facilities that are required. I remember attending one of your events, and you know, one of your fellows was receiving an iPad to help them to teach the kids in the village. And I was actually very touched by that. But then it dawned on me that, you know, this guy with just his one iPad in a school of like 400 students. And then it dawned on me that, you know, here I am, I have my laptop here, I have my phone here, I have my PC here, and the situation here is slightly different. And I know that not every family in the UK has a computer, for instance, but the challenges are not even just the physical aspects of the equipment. It's the data that is needed to access some of this content online. And as well as that, then you have the challenge of dealing with the parents, because you assume that the parents know what to do in terms of helping the students to actually learn. And most of these parents themselves didn't go to school, and those who did didn't actually go as far as to be able to impact. So the longer this lockdown goes on, it's obviously bound to have challenges. Are you finding trouble in terms of deploying technology to come to your rescue?
Dennis, that's a question to me, right?
Yes, it is. I want to direct all the initial questions with you. I know that you're leaving very shortly, so let's deal with yours first.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So technology, and I saw our dear alumni Bizoza is on there, and I would let him talk more eventually on their great work, because I'm glad that he's there. He's one of our leaders who finished the program. And welcome, Bizoza. I'm happy to see you on the call. And Bizoza is also innovating. He's actually a technologist. We have challenges with the technology. Number one, our alumni, I'm going to put Bizoza on the spot. They have been even requesting that they need technology access and MBs, Dennis, to be able to do their work, because some of them are innovating. Bizoza, for example, is involved in TEP, which is Teacher Empowerment Platform. And his idea is to try and help teachers who do not have access, who do not even understand, rural teachers who do not even understand what a Google Drive is, Dennis, you know? And the gentleman, Charles Obore, I invited him, the one you gave, and thanks to you for your partnership with us, you gave a Kindle, I think, if I remember very well, has been using it in his schools educate not only his children, but also as an alumni to educate girls in his rural district of Kumi, you know. And the challenge of technology is huge. One, the gadgets, that is the challenge. We don't have the gadgets. Even as we speak, our fellows are trying to develop these workbooks. Of course, when you're developing them, you must have a computer, you must type. Well, not all of them have computers. And Teach for Uganda, at this point, we cannot afford to give, 23 computers to all our 23 fellows. And so they're advising on their phones, and those who have computers are finding ways of sharing the work with those without computers, sharing the work with those with computers. And then those with computers who came in with their personal computers are able to type the work and then send it into our leadership development coaches who have computers, and then they compile it, and then we are able to print. In fact, today as I speak, we sent out payment to the printers to ensure that we print some of those workbooks. And so one of our alumni leaders, Moses, is actually spoke to the Minister for ICT, and there is some possibility that we may do a proposal of sorts to see if we can secure some gadgets, but still it is a big, big challenge, and I welcome ideas, innovations, to learn from other people and how they are dealing with it, especially for us in rural communities with limited resources, and also under the lockdown.
Maybe the other question to you, James, might be, and apologies to my other guests, I promise you I'll bring you in very shortly, but for James, the biggest word that has been branded around has been the new normal. Do you anticipate that the challenges that we are having to deal with are going to, because education is not known for being very innovative, it's quite traditional in a way. Do you anticipate that this is going to change the way you guys are going to be impacting education going forward? Is it impacting your strategy in terms of deploying technology now as a core aspect of your value proposition? Do you expect this to be the new normal? James.
Yes, your message was quite fledgling out there, but I understood the question that, is this going to change the way we operate, change our strategy, and going forward, our value proposition to how we work with our fellows, our children, our communities, and also our partners, right? Yeah, yes. Yeah, definitely it has changed. It has already changed, Dennis. And for our listeners out there, I was reading a piece on Harvard Business Review that was saying any leader who is not thinking about the future now is actually working in peril. And I will be able to share that with you, Dennis, that you share with our viewers, that we need to be thinking ahead post-COVID, and how are we going to thrive, not just survive, but thrive in this new normal. And already we are thinking about possibilities. Yesterday, I spoke to one of our funders who allowed us that we could actually use some of our funds credits. We have some credits to apply to this new kind of challenge by basically being able to do the workbooks, think ahead, so that when COVID-19, they open schools, I have a feeling that the president will open schools a bit soon, once they have done the research as he shared and been able to put measurements to protect the children in schools, they will open. But for us, we're already thinking ahead that when they open schools, our children will have their workbooks in their hands, they will have self-assessment, they'll have everything for the entire year, right? So that anything happens, whether it's a tornado or whatever, we will be ready for our children to self-learn and self-assess. The other thing we are doing too, our fellows are doing research on every single home whose partner school we work with, every partner school community, because we partner with 16 schools. They are finding out which home has a phone, which home has a radio, and which radio is working and not working. And then we'll be able to know how to ensure that they are learning, which home has a TV as well. And we are compiling an entire database that we'll be able to use going forward. And that same database, we'll use it when we are working and writing proposals to our partners of how we can support the learning of our children. The last one I will say is our partner DHL, we partner with DHL, we communicated with them about the challenges we are facing with our young people online, and DHL has offered some fund, COVID fund, towards alleviating some. It's a very small fund, but it's a few euros, but we are putting it towards alleviating some of those problems. And I'm in the middle of writing the proposal showing how we are going to be using those funds towards COVID challenges and going forward. So for now, we've already changed the way we do our things. It cannot be the new normal. In fact, I would rather use the word, it has to be the innovative normal.
I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. Now, James, you are welcome to. Thank you very much for your thoughts, for your input. I'm mindful of your time. So if you want to leave, I would not be very much disappointed. You've given up a lot of your time already, but you're welcome to stay in Cambodia as you do other things. In the meantime, let me bring on board one of your fellows, Francis Vizosa. Francis, how are you? Can you hear me? Let me unmute you.
Yes, I'm very well, thank you, Dennis.
Good to see you. Good to hear from you. I'm very happy for all the work that you've been doing with Teach for Uganda. I've been following you on Facebook and other places. But James mentioned slightly one of the other things that you do. We call it a side hustle around technology. What's the organization, and how are you guys using or deploying technology to help primary school children or teachers, for that matter, during this COVID-19 or even before?
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Dennis, for this opportunity. As you may know, of course, the infrastructure in Uganda does not enable the teachers to be able to use the internet, to have access to gadgets using the classrooms. So previously, what we did when I was still on the fellowship and the school hours, we tried to have a training for the teachers on how best to use their small phones that they have, even it being sending text messages. But with this pandemic, with this COVID-19, it has been a great lesson. And my hope and belief is that everything is going to change, and the government can see why it is important to invest infrastructure in terms of ICT in schools, and to let those schools that already have the infrastructure to use them. So our next project that we are writing a proposal for now is a tech hub, where we want to run a mobile hub that will be fully equipped with computers and internet and printers, that will move across the country in different regions and running workshops for teachers at a time to learn how to use ICT. So we equip them with basic ICT skills, help them open an email address, have a Facebook page, and maybe a Twitter handle, and let them learn how to use Excel and Word, and how they can probably keep their assessments and keep their notes online. So we intend to have this kickoff probably next year, that is if we get the funding, so that we try to reach all public teachers in public schools to equip them with these basic ICT skills. Then after that, we keep them in a database where we share resources on Google Drive, and they have access to all the resources that can help them to build their capacity online.
That's absolutely fantastic. So thank you very much for all the good work that you guys are doing. I do apologize once again. We've lost the Facebook Live, and that's the second time I've posted the Facebook Live and still got cut off. So something's happening with the internet today, but not to worry, I'll post the video after. But it's a shame that we won't get the feedback from your typical. But I'll also give an opportunity for some of the participants. I think we have about 14 people online. We can roll with those in the meantime. So the reason we're talking about education is because of students. So I would like to bring in at this stage, Carol Agaba. Carol, are you there? Let me unmute.
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, fantastic. So
Yes.
Carol Agaba, I know that you mentioned very briefly who you are, what you're studying, but that was at the beginning, and some of our listeners may have missed out on that. So could you briefly say who you are, what you study, what year you're in, and then we can talk very briefly about what challenges you've had during this lockdown and how you're coping.
Okay. Okay. I'm Agaba Caro. A student at Kyambogo University studying human nutrition and dietetics. I'm in year 3. I have 4 years. So year 3 is the one we are dealing with right now.
Yeah.
Well, the challenge is, of course, we're going to have there's a big major setback in our education, because if you look at the normal schedule that we have been having before COVID-19, we are scheduled for graduation in 2022. We are supposed to be done with campus by 2021, but I don't know, these 2 months have affected our learning. We are not our system is not that well improved that we have e-learning like other places. We've seen private universities trying to go on with the e-learning, but due to, I don't know what happened, I think it was stopped because others would be missing out. I think it wouldn't be fair if other universities were learning while the government institutions were not. Most government institutions are all on hold. Right now, the only interaction we are having with our education is between lecturer to student, where if you have maybe assignments to hand in that you can hand in via email, or proposals we're supposed to hand in, project work we're supposed to hand in. That's the only learning we are having right now. So that's the biggest challenge we are facing.
Okay. One of the tools that we've been using. So I also teach at Birmingham City University, and even prior to COVID-19, we already had the infrastructure to be able to deliver the teaching remotely. However, there's always an aspect of the student experience of being in class and being interactive. But lately, one of the things that has become more apparent is the use of things like Zoom. Sorry, not Zoom, Microsoft Teams. So we're using it a lot to facilitate our student experience. My students, for instance, are already submitting their assignments, so we had to adjust slightly so that they still are able to submit. So for your colleagues, Carol, who perhaps don't have the data, because one of the challenges with Uganda is, things like social media attacks and even the cost of data alone. I know that's come down over a long, it's come down dramatically, but it's still a cost that the average student who's struggling to make ends meet, to buy food and things like that, struggles to have access to. Are you finding that? So, talk to me. What technologies apart from just sending emails are you guys using? Are you using Microsoft Teams, for instance? Are you having challenges with data? How are you deploying technology apart from just sending emails, or is that it? And if that's it, how is this impacting on your studying, which you're supposed to be doing towards the end of the year? Are you going to be given more time, for instance?
Well, honestly speaking, I don't think a big effort has been put in place like the Birmingham University has done. Not a very big effort has been done on our end, because I don't see for primary education and probably secondary education, the efforts have been done, and probably students are getting the necessary information they need for their studies. But when it comes to the tertiary institutions, our modules are already put on the e-platform. We have our online, like every university has their online website where you can access what kind of what courses you're studying that semester. We call it course units. So it dwells upon the student to either put in to learn those modules or those courses as like it's upon you to read about what you study that semester. Right now, that's the only effort we are putting in. Otherwise, there's no the discussions we're having are happening via call to direct calling. I don't think most people are familiar with Zoom, and of course the data charges are very high. They are very high. They have not excused the OTT taxi or anything, so we can't really engage that much via those apps that you mentioned earlier. Yeah.
Now,
well, the impact it has, it's going to delay us. It's going to delay us a lot.
Okay, it's very, very,
it's going to
very
delay
hard.
us.
Very hard to hear that. And I know, of course, Kyambogo is not your. Kyambogo is one of the best universities in Uganda. So I imagine for the other universities that are upcountry and have similar, if not worse, challenges. Maybe the other thing is at a personal level. How is this impacting you in terms of your emotional well-being? Are you anxious as a student? Are you worried now how this is going to impact on job prospects going forward? What's happening within your student community since COVID started?
Well, I think the break from this, we try to see a blessing in whatever crisis we are going through right now. The blessing is that we have been given more time to research on our own. Yeah. If you were given a chance to study on your own, what would you do? That's what we are facing right now. And the blessing is, if you are blessed enough to have the data and the technology, you have access to Google and all this internet. We are blessed enough to have more information. But for my friends out there who are not that well blessed, that's the issue. People are going to be dragged behind. Well, it comes down, I think it comes down to personal motivation, really. Personal motivation is the key to surviving this whole COVID-19. If you are motivated enough to find out and research on what is important, then I think you can strive through it.
That's a very good attitude. That's a very good attitude and mindset to have. And it's on that note then that takes me to... Hello? Carol, I think the network is terrible. It's probably actually on my side for once. I don't know what's going on, but never mind. Let's, on that note, allow me to bring in my third guest, Dr. Norman Mukasa. Norman, are you still there?
Yes, please. Yes, please. I'm still there.
Apologies. You must have been wondering, when is this man bringing me on?
It's okay. I got a good feed in from James and Carol here. Yeah.
And it was deliberate because I wanted us to set the context for our discussion, to hear from James's organization, people who are actually on the ground working with students, to hear from the likes of Rizoza, who is actually a teacher and also a technologist himself. To also hear from students, not just primary school students, but university students. And this is where you and myself come in, perhaps to wrap it up and try and talk about the challenges with higher education institutions, tertiary institutions in particular. Yeah. So we've talked briefly about, so you've had the challenges that Carol is having. And as a lecturer myself, I can relate with the challenges that she's talking about. But I must say that our university has really adopted very well, not least because prior to COVID-19, we had the infrastructure to be able to do that. I don't know what your experience is with the Muteesa Royal University. Are you having similar challenges? How have you been coping as a university during COVID-19? Because I understand that since the closure, universities are not allowed to use technology, for instance, to carry on with examination. Am I right in assuming that?
Yes, to come in there. Yes, maybe before I go to what Muteesa is doing, I wanted to pick up a point that Carol raised, which is what we're experiencing, and that is this COVID issue has exacerbated the existing inequalities. And this comes down to students who are coming from rural areas, who are coming from poor families that cannot perhaps afford in the first place a computer for that student, and second, a smartphone to support the learning. So to that point, that is where the organization of GEMS, partnering with universities and other funders, could think about a design where it becomes maybe the future inbuilt in academic systems at higher learning, to give a computer to a student, a laptop at least, as part of a gadget that is going to support the learning. And that could be an initiative that is going to support learning to a higher level. And now I will go to the experience of Muteesa. I hope I'm still there.
Yes, I can hear you.
The experience of Muteesa. We have had 5 meetings in the last 2 weeks, trying to think about how we are going to address the issue of continuing the contact between the lecturers and the students. And among the options that are being used at the moment is Facebook, WhatsApp, messaging, and the last approach is going to be creating some hubs. You know, we have class coordinators, and I start from the other two, what we call now social media. So we are using as lecturers WhatsApp groups. So class coordinators have created WhatsApp groups. These have existed before the COVID-19, and students have been using them to just communicate, saying, hello, the lecturer is here, can you come to class? But now we're actually using them as platforms to exchange PowerPoint presentations and the rest. And we have realized that when that is done, there are a number of students who cannot afford to have bundles to their smartphones, and there are others who actually don't have smartphones. So the new design that we are going to try out is we have a database for students' emails. So when a student comes, they create an email address account for that student on the university portal, and that is going to be used. But as you know, in Uganda, somebody may take a week, a student, or a week or more to check that email. So there's going to be a message sent to say, hello, there is some inbox information that you need to access. And that is a design that is going to be tried out by the information management unit of the university. But all these are coming at a time when we have not had initially a database of a sort. That I liked James and what they are going to do is that with the 16 schools they have, they are also doing research at the same time to know who has a radio at home, who has a television, who has a phone, a smartphone. This database is going to be very critical as we move forward, because we are going to go down to asking the students, what kind of gadgets do you have that can support learning? And thereafter we can cluster our learning and materials and distribute them using those existing mechanisms. So bottom line is this COVID-19 has given a challenge to institutions of higher learning in Uganda. We know that one university, that was UCU, which already had a kind of existing exchange between students and the lecturers and e-learning of a sort. They were ready to even give students exams and tests online. And then they were stopped by this government because of the inherent inequalities within the systems and of course different universities, and then thereafter the students themselves who may not be able to access internet or have a computer at their desk at home. So that's where we are today. And I think we are still grappling with these issues and thinking about the environmental challenges that we have. I have always fought for infrastructure, and I have worked with the Goethe Institute in Germany, and I was there to design, we designed a proposal together with Goethe to provide an infrastructure for research, basically, for higher learning. And we did a kind of needs assessment, and found that the challenge was actually that even the lecturers that we have today in our universities, that is Muteesa at least and Bugema, that I tried to coordinate, did not have enough skills for research methodology. And we have now a summer school that rolled out last year. We have also another summer school on research and data management. So the same design needs to be used when it comes to data infrastructures, e-learning. We need to go down and map out the existing resources that are there in the universities. And we may do a consortium of a sort as universities because of the limited resources. And in that, we have maybe data centers at one university that is well established that can support the other. But I'm talking about private institutions. So the objectives of the institutions may not align. So that is where I'm looking at futuristically.
That's a very interesting observation, and I was reflecting about this last night, especially if I see the great work that NEMRA, for instance, is doing to coordinate research students or researchers in Uganda. I wondered whether a similar consortium at an institutional level wasn't more effective in tackling some of the issues. I'm a big fan of, and I was talking about this at the beginning of COVID-19, wondering whether it didn't make sense, for instance, to deal with both the locusts and COVID-19 at an East African level, because then you have resources and institutions all working together. But if you have that same mindset in any industry, whether it is the charity sector, I had the same argument with the charity sector saying, you know, government is you know, with all the contributions that are being made, it's okay that people can contribute to a national task force, but charities have always done this job of reaching out to Omuntu Wawansi. Was it not better, for instance, to organize them in a consortium of some sort? And the same thinking could be deployed with the higher education institutions. I wondered whether working together, particularly during this time, whether that wasn't like a missed opportunity, for instance, to advance higher education in Uganda. And it's very interesting that you pointed that one out. But I do appreciate that it has challenges. Different universities have different levels of resources. They have different disciplines that require different things. For instance, some institutions and some disciplines like medicine, there are no shortcuts. You have to be in the theater, you know. So I do appreciate those challenges. But let me take you back to research. As a research student myself, and you would know this given the good work that you're doing with Dr. Doris and all your other colleagues at NEMRA. How is this impacting research students in particular? I mean, a lot of research is funded by grants, most of which tend to be Western in terms of the source. Do you anticipate that some of this funding might dry out? From a practical point of view, on the ground, are you finding that some of your students, for instance, or researchers are having challenges with data collection? With the quarantine, you obviously can't move back and forth. You're not allowed to move.
Yeah.
How are research colleagues at your institution coping with COVID-19?
Yes, yes. To that point, in the middle of this COVID-19, I pushed out a call for papers to all the lecturers because I told them you have enough time to work on a paper. And almost half of them said, okay, where are we getting the data? And through these exchanges, including Nimura, a few colleagues said, well, this is the right time to try out digital kind of or social media based surveys. And I've seen a number of them within this season. Of course, we have issues ethically about the response. First of all, we are not sure about the response rate that we are going to have. And you have to design this questionnaire in a way that you will not have multiple responses from a single individual and the rest. But those are weaknesses that can be addressed methodologically. So what I think what we are experiencing today is we have to try out new things. And that is going to be practically with research. If you had already designed your methodology for a paper for which you had to go to the field, like it or not, COVID-19 is going to become one of the limitations you are going to highlight. And you may actually demonstrate how you overcame that challenge by doing phone-based interviews, by thinking about other ways of doing the interviews. From that point, network, which you know about Nimura, through the WhatsApp, a simple WhatsApp, Dr. Lois and other people, including yourself, have become very structured contributors. And I'm actually baffled by the level of response to one simple question of a single student PhD who says, I have a problem with my methodology. I have, such and such challenge. And you will see a string of responses. And for me, this is an indicator of how we can solve the problem of research supervision in Uganda. On the platform, we have all come to agree, and we have a proposal of doing a stock take. We are going to do a stock take with Dr. Lois of the research training within institutions of higher learning in Uganda. And what we intend to do is to understand the current problem of students dropping out of master's programs. And the other issue is students taking forever, if I may use the word, to complete a master's that was supposed to be completed in 2 to 3 years, and they're taking 10 years. So we think there's something to do with the supervision, and part of it is we need to replace so much of the physical meetings with online-based support systems and communication between researcher and supervisor, or supervisor and supervisee. So these kind of designs, we were lucky to have Dr. Peter Samuels here, and he presented how it's done in Birmingham City, and how you can monitor all these meetings between the supervisor and the supervisee, and within the structure of internet-based exchanges. So what we are facing today is a challenge, and this is because of the social distancing, but the opportunities, and we are learning. I have just been in touch with about 6 students of mine that are working on their research. Of course, many of them struggling to get data to send me, but I've told them, now go for a social media. I don't mind you sending me your work via WhatsApp. You know, you can attach and send it to me. I'll put it on my email address, and then I'll keep it in my database on the computer, and then I'll send it to you back on WhatsApp if that is the model that you have. That is the medium that you can use. So I think, in summary, we are still going on with supervising students, exchanges on research, but I don't know for one, how many other colleagues are actually seated down stuck. And I think these are many, especially those who have not been using these kind of mediums for communicating with students or for work. And seated here, you have to plan. Home office is not easy. We have families, so you bring in the social aspects. We have colleagues who may not have the ability to spare a room for an office. We have colleagues who don't have a laptop in the first place, who have been relying entirely on the institutional resources, which are desk computer. So all these are going to be issues that universities are going to address. Maybe we are going to get to a level where a lecturer will need a laptop, which is a common practice in some places. So a laptop to carry on work off campus. So I think there is a lot of learning that is going to happen.
I think what's coming up and what is very interesting and perhaps not surprising is that the role technology is playing in continuing education at different levels. So while at Birmingham State University we may have, and most UK universities anyway, we may have already had facilities in place. A friend of mine is actually delivering similar business-related courses online, and they had moved the entire platform, Muteesa Advisory Services, to deliver these kind of things online. I'm also doing another course somewhere else online. So this whole idea of MOOCs and is definitely picking up. But in terms of the different types of technology, whether it is Microsoft Teams, whether it is WhatsApp, it's amazing how different universities, different institutions, different countries are using different types of technology, whether it's emails. But for me, the revelation has been what you guys are doing with NEMRA. And I am on very many WhatsApp groups, and I've had to exit on a number of them every now and again. But I've never been on a WhatsApp group that is as effective, informative, invaluable as the one on NEMRA, particularly as a research student. It's absolutely fantastic. So if there's any research colleague in Uganda, please look it up and by all means join. And I'm also grateful for my colleague Peter Samuels, who's been among others who are sending and sharing invaluable bits of information. Perhaps one of the other things is the, let me first see if there are any questions actually. Bear with me one second. Let's first go through and see if there are any. It's unfortunate that we're not able to share this on Facebook Live. We had about two, question number one from Bear Simpson. This one is to you, Norman. What is NEMRA?
NEMRA is the network, network for education and multidisciplinary research Africa.
Yep.
The acronym goes Network for Education and Multidisciplinary Research Africa. It's a Uganda-based and registered.
Let me see if there are any other questions. Bear with me. Oh, at this point, by the way, for any other participants, does anyone have a question? Let me have a look through. No, this one was just a response saying thank you. How do we get in touch? How do they get in touch with NEMRA?
NEMRA has a web page. So if you go to the internet and type in NEMRA in full, we have said it's a network for education and multidisciplinary research Africa. You will be able to access the web page, and you can start the connection there. And we are using the WhatsApp. So I don't know. I think Dennis will share.
Yes,
That is
I'm
in
going to
order.
look it up in the course of I'm going to look it up in the course of the discussion and see if I can actually post it in the comments link as well. Anyone else with a question? You're welcome. You can actually ask the question yourself. But if there's none, let me get on to the next section, which was about this. We talked about gaps. One of the challenges is, and I think this is life generally, we cannot all be at the same level, and not all universities are at the same level. They don't have the same resources. The student profile is not the same. Their geographical location presents different challenges. So we cannot have a one-size-fits-all. But for institutions like NEMRA, what plans do you have going forward that perhaps researchers that, what things do you have in the pipeline that some of my researchers and colleagues and fellow prospective researchers could be looking forward to? Why would someone want to join NEMRA? I know the benefits, but perhaps you could throw some more light, and specifically any projects that you have coming up. I know we've been talking about things like being able to have our own publishing journals. I know that you run some events and different locations, but for our viewers who are not aware of this brilliant organization that supports research,
Yes.
what kind of stuff would you tell them that the benefits are? And is there a membership, for instance? How often do you meet? Please.
Yeah, for I'm not the spokesperson. NEMRA its main activity before the COVID-19 has been organizing regular trainings for postgraduate students. These have been trainings where they have provided topical issues in research, and the attendance is that people can individually pay for them, or those who become members automatically attend after subscribing to be members of NEMRA. And for that, the membership has grown quite substantially, and a number of volunteers who are lecturers and researchers have actually come up to give some mentorship. That's another design. One is to give the real trainings. Those are organized in different universities. There's a Mbarara chapter, some in Bugema University. It's sort of rotational. And then there's the mentorship bit, where Muteesa Royal University has decided to host what we call research clinics.
Yeah.
Because as we highlighted initially, the challenge is some students there's that gap between them and their supervisor, who is busy and is not reading the work, and the student wants to progress. So we have created this network to support those kind of students, or who have issues with, say, I am going to the field and I'm actually stuck. I don't know how to get the clearance for undertaking the research. I would like to know which models I can use. So those kind of quick questions that need responses, and also trying to link people with different competencies, because as we speak now, there are people who are training postgraduate researchers in Atlas. There are those who are giving trainings. So kind of, it's a network where the trainings are happening, mentorship is happening, which we call research clinics, and also we are having exchanges between different people. So at the moment, we are writing a number of proposals. We have submitted proposals, which I will not go into details, but I will just go into detail with the content. We have one, which I think now is very critical. We want to create a research community. And it's a kind of consortium. So we already have 4 universities that are part of this writing, and it's going to be extended beyond the 4 universities. The idea is we can actually begin this discussion we have been having. So if we are to do some joint work, we have already highlighted things such as we want to build joint databases and repositories. One challenge in Uganda is that we have small journals in these universities that are not online. So we want to work on in a systematic way to map out all these small happening issues that are so-called domestic or local within the university, and try to link them such that resources, data resources can be shared, findings can be shared. So we are planning on that. So the community is going to provide a repository that is in the proposal, and that repository will link up most of the small kind of data sets that universities have into a kind of shared database, such that we don't have this continuous going to the field to collect data that has already been collected by another entity of a university. So, and we also want to also increase the dissemination of findings of our researchers in Uganda. You will find that most of our researchers are doing their own research, but they're publishing in international journals. Why? It's understandable. We want the impact factor. And we can do it domestically and build our journals to be stronger if we come out as a research community. So that is
that's
very strong about, and we think it's innovative.
That's an interesting and very valid observation, Dr. Norman. I have an interesting statistic for you. As part of my literature review, I figured out that around 50%, not 50%, around 50% of all publications of, 2, 3, 4, star-rated journals, around 50% of publications on entrepreneurship education were in UK journals. Just think about it. And another like 20% were in European journals. So essentially around 70% of publications on entrepreneurship education were in European journals. Now, if you take out those, you have another perhaps 10, 15 from North America, and you're talking Canada, USA. By the time you throw in China, India, there's little coming from Africa. It doesn't mean that Africans are not publishing, but our publication is disproportionately represented in academic literature. And I think the likes of NIMRA has never been, the need for organizations like NIMRA has never been more important. I'm going to wrap this up, but there's a question, I think, from Bear Simpson. Thanks, Dennis. I'm a PhD education student based in the UK. Good. I'm interested in education and reading on accountability in the education sector, focusing on early childhood education. I saw this on the Cambridge UG WhatsApp group. Oh, yes. That's where you came through. Okay. That's another interesting WhatsApp group, by the way, from mainly Cambridge University students, which I'm on that group for. Let's link and connect after this call via WhatsApp, and then we can pick it up. So unless there are no other questions, I'm just going to ask my guests to wrap it up. I don't know whether James is still available. I know that he was busy. He might want to just come in. No, he's left, I think. So Any final thoughts, Dr. Norman, for you to wrap up around COVID, the challenges, what's happening in higher education institutions? Your thoughts for the future? Are you hopeful? Are you optimistic? Are you apprehensive?
Yes, I hear you now.
I don't know what happened, but somehow we all got cut off. But good to see you back. So I was saying before you got cut off that what are your final thoughts? We're finishing anyway. What are your final thoughts with regards to what's been happening? So pre-COVID, during COVID, post-COVID, where is your mind at? Are you in the glass half full category, in the glass half empty category? Are you optimistic? Are you apprehensive? Are you hopeful? Are you excited? Your final thoughts.
I think I have, it's a combination. I'm very hopeful that we are going to remodel our operations, but I'm also very, at the same time, skeptical that the resources we have are going to be enough to push us forward. So what I think the solution is going to be is the kind of ideas like we just shared with you, of research communities and creating shared platforms and resource sharing avenues, and also that within the universities, if disciplines can create a network, if a university to university network does not apply, then discipline to discipline kind of across disciplines, we can have different networks that can share resources and build their own internet-based learning and provide, in a way, capacity. Because we will need to train the lecturers in how to use these platforms. I just tried out the Google Classroom, and I saw you need to learn how to use it, and then you have to also get your learners to use those. So I think there will be, I'm optimistic that we are going to move forward. I'm just skeptical that if we go as individual universities, we may not actually harness a lot from this. So we need to build some kind of collaborative efforts, and then we can move forward and build a sustainable future where learning and knowledge can be shared regardless of time and space. So that would mean that we need technology in that. Yes, and there's a cultural issue because we were trained as lecturers from another, system that was paper-based. We call it yellow paper, and we have lecturers who are professors who are in that category. I'm sorry to mention. So then even lecturers to my level. So then we have to have a culture change to make people appreciate the future that we have to go in. So I'm optimistic.
Fantastic. Let me see. There was a question from Carol, but I can't seem to see it. I've shared some text from James Kassaga, and it's about, let me share it on the Zoom link. Ooh, I can't seem to share it. I think it's too big. I'll share it on other forums, on Facebook and on other WhatsApp forums. So I do apologize for the poor internet connection, but I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all my guests, all my participants for your time, your effort, your contributions. In particular, Dr. Norman, thank you very much, not least for the great work that Dr. Doris, yourself, and a few of your colleagues are doing with NEMRA. It's really, it's been a
pleasure.
It's been arguably the best the best WhatsApp group I have been on, and it's been the liveliest. I don't remember it being as lively as it has been. I doubt there is any other community that is making the most of the quarantine like the researchers in our community. So thank you very much for all the good work that you're doing. To James, who's probably left us
pleasure
by now, thank you very much for all the good work that you're doing. not just even during COVID, but even before COVID. You selflessly put yourself and your team to serve the less privileged, and you do it because you're passionate about it. So thank you very much. And to Carol Agaba, our student guest, I'm hoping that you appreciated the context within which you are currently studying, and that you picked some nuggets from our guests today, and hope that you embark on life as a student post-COVID with some hope and optimism. There's usually opportunities when things appear to be falling out of place. Sometimes they're actually falling in place. So if you stay clear-eyed, as I know you are, you will find the opportunities, because every student is in the same boat. So don't feel like you're being, don't take the weight on yourself. Remember that you're in the same boat with everyone else. Try and seek advice from everyone, including ourselves, your lecturers. Most lecturers that I know are very understanding during this tough time. So take advantage of all the help that you can get. And to everyone else, thank you very much for joining us. And to maybe just to mention that we'll be doing this every Wednesday, but my colleague Eugene, who's also online, runs a couple of other sessions on Tuesdays and Fridays, where we talk about a number of topics ranging from, law, business, entrepreneurship, finance, economics, talking to a number of people around what's happening and the impact COVID is having on them, and also the solutions. It's not good enough to just talk about the problems, but it's also good to talk about the potential solutions. So thank you very much, everyone, and have yourselves a good day. Take care.
We do apologize for the absolutely
Okay,
terrible
thank you.
internet today from the beginning, including the disruptions on Facebook Live, as well as the breakages within and during the call. Apologies for that, but hope you have picked one or two nuggets from the Zoom session. Thank you.